Hello and welcome to our third episode of Hungry Talks. I'm your host, Alana.
And I'm your other host, Bella.
And tonight we're getting into the nitty-gritty of a role that some of us want to be, while the rest of us don't really know what it actually is. Yes, I'm talking about account management. As always, pop your questions in the chat box throughout the episode and we'll put our expert account manager in the hot seat to answer them. Speaking of, we're thrilled to have the talented Dan Collado, client partner at AKQA, join us tonight. With almost 15 years of experience in client service and account management at agencies such as the Royals, Isobar and Publicis Mojo, please welcome Dan to the show. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me. I remember when I was back at uni, back in the UK, we had really strong connections with the industry, and agencies used to come out and help us sort of connect the academia with the real world. So I'm really glad to be paying that back years later. That's great.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So let's get right to the point, Dan. I'll be honest, myself and Bella and a majority of our cohort are still a little unsure about what an accounts manager does. And frankly, at this point in our education, we're too scared to ask. So could you please settle this one for us? What does your role involve?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So look, account service, account management comes in all different shapes and sizes. Some people just deal with it by just serving the client and doing whatever the client says. Others just live to clear a path to make sure every idea that a creative team puts forward gets through. My approach is all about creating long-term partnerships, both within the agency and with the clients, to get the best possible results in terms of work and results for the client. So what that really means is when I'm in the agency, I represent my clients, and I am the person in the agency who understands every possible bit of information about my clients that's required. When are the budgets getting approved? Who are the stakeholders? What are their concerns? Who's trying to get a promotion over there, and how are we going to help them do that? So that when I'm in the agency and assessing work, I can put that lens and filter on things that we're going to present to clients to ensure the best possible path. Conversely, when I'm with clients, I'm a representative of everything the agency does and everyone in the agency. So I need to know a little bit about a lot of things. I'm not an expert in anything other than relationships. I know enough about a lot of things to be able to have those conversations with client and represent the agency until a point where it's time to bring an expert in to present a creative idea, for example, or talk to a complex CRM strategy.
Wow, incredible. And I'm glad that we finally have an answer about it as well. That seems like a really important job. And following that, how did you figure out that client management was for you?
I didn't really figure out, it just kind of happened. I knew I wanted to be in advertising. I did a degree in advertising and then came here traveling and sort of got stuck in some very unrelated jobs, but knew I wanted to get back. And all I really wanted to do was be in a creative environment, be around color and ideas and thought and communication. That was what I knew I wanted. And I just happened to be good with people and good at customer service in my previous job. So my entry point was account service, and that's what I've done for nearly 15 years now.
Right. And the agency that you work at, AKQA, it looks quite different from a regular creative ad agency. I think it's important that once our students graduate, they find an agency that really fits with them. So can you walk us through how AKQA approaches work and how they're different?
Yeah, AKQA is quite different in market, and it's also different region to region. So we're a global agency. We were founded in London in about 2002 by a gentleman called Ajaz Ahmed, who is still our global CEO. And we started off as one of the first digital agencies, exploring when the internet was in its infancy, exploring what that meant for clients. And we still very much focus our work around technology and the internet. So the way we talk about our philosophy at a really macro level is we converge art and science to build a better future for our clients. So that's really broad and lofty. Art could be creative, it could be writing, it could be a use of a technology. Science is very deliberately use of technology. That could be data, it could be a big website platform, it could be VR, AR, anything. And then when we talk about creating a better future, that also could mean a lot of things. A better future for one client might mean selling more cars. A better future for another client might mean drawing more tourism to the state. That's one of my clients, Visit Victoria. And we also look at things from a very ethical standpoint as well. And we're involved in projects, for example, that are helping save the rainforests and helping people with poor sight enjoy tennis more through an audio technology. So that's a broad statement. There's lots more to dig into, and I'd encourage you to look at the global website, akqa.com, if you want to find out more.
That's awesome. I love that collision of art and science. I think that brings up a lot of really cool ideas. So I'd love to know, in your time at AKQA, what are some notable clients that you've had the opportunity to work with?
So AKQA, I have worked at, I started off on Nike in Tokyo, which we can talk about a bit later. I currently work on Tourism Victoria, or Visit Victoria, which is obviously in a really interesting phase at the moment with the challenges we have in the world right now. And I've just started on Nissan Automotive in Australia. I've also worked on Bunnings and AKQA. Prior to that, I've worked on all sorts of clients in Australia, ranging from Penfolds, Rosemount, Lindemans Wines and Treasury Wine Estate, L'Oreal Garnier, Tennis Australia, Australian Open, Specsavers, Ozpost, Australian Super. That's one thing I love about account service. You get to get involved in so many different businesses and really understand the broad business world and have an understanding of multiple sectors over a number of years.
Wow. Yeah. So kind of following that, you have to obviously work with heaps of different clients. If, say, I wanted to be an accounts manager, what kind of skills would I need?
So I'd say that the sort of minimum ticket to entry is good. You have to be personable and like interacting with people, because a big, huge part of the job is building and forging relationships with people of all creeds, colors, shapes, sizes. You need to be able to read the room and have good emotional intelligence to adapt to the different people's personalities. You also need to be pretty organized. When you're in a junior role in account service, you tend to be getting involved in the nitty gritty, the operations of how an account works, the finance, the scheduling, the resource booking, all of those things. And then as you grow and elevate and your understanding grows, you become more strategic, more getting closer to the actual choices made in what work we do. But still overseeing all of that delivery and those more granular operational aspects.
Wow, yeah. And so following that, because you kind of said that you not fell into client management, but were there any skills that you were unaware of that you had to build to get where you are now?
I don't think I realized what a thick skin you need to develop, and that was certainly a muscle that I needed to grow for me. And I think that's probably true of most roles in an agency, but in particular with account service. As we've said, you're constantly managing expectation. You've got a creative director on your back telling you that you're not pushing the ideas hard enough to the client. You've got a client telling you that things cost too much. You're constantly managing people and trying to make them feel comfortable when perhaps they're stressed or perhaps they're not happy with what's in front of them. So developing a thick skin takes time. Some people, it just, they don't care. It's water off a duck's back. For me, I had to really work on that over a number of years and get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Amazing. And to all our account management hopefuls out there, I hope you guys are taking notes. Very, very good points there. Now let's get into a round of myth busting. So Dan, we're going to say a statement and we would love for you to tell us if it's true or not and explain a bit about why. So let's jump right into it. First of all, true or false, your job is to wine and dine clients?
Partly true. An aspect of my job is to wine and dine clients. That being said, that has changed a bit over the years. So when I joined the industry, I kind of missed the Mad Men heyday of debaucherous advertising. That just passed, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I'm not sure. But even since then, there's much more compliance these days with organizations around fraud and bribery. And most big organizations have really strict rules around what we can do in terms of entertaining clients. And that reflects on our company as well. So the holding group I work for has pretty strict rules on that globally. That being said, there is always room to have a nice lunch and then to have the odd party. It's just not as big as it used to be. But certainly it's a fun part of the job to be the person who can make those calls and say, right, we need to meet in a restaurant on Flinders Lane on Friday to work this out. It's certainly a benefit that I enjoy.
Wonderful. And to our next question is, true or false, account services people aren't creative?
Completely 100% false. Everyone is creative. I know accountants that are great watercolor painters. I know scientists who are amazing musicians. There is not a person in this world who isn't creative. There are just different flavors of creativity. And so bringing that more focus to your question, in account service, people tend to be creative more in their communication and their ability to tell stories. So, for example, I'm presenting an awful lot. I have to pull presentations together based on elements provided to me by the strategy team, the technology team, the creative team, finance team, and I have to craft that into a narrative. If I wasn't creative, I wouldn't be able to do that, and I have to do that almost every day. So absolutely not true. Everyone is creative. We're just all creative in different ways.
I like that. I like the different flavors of creative. That's a good way to put it. Our next one is true or false. An accounts management role is pretty similar to HR or other people management roles.
The HR piece is not true. HR, a definition of HR is really a function in a business that sets policies and procedures to make sure that everyone is treated fairly and equally represented. That is certainly not what account service does. Yes, there is a huge element of people management in all areas, managing your team, managing the creative team, the strategy team, managing your client. But it's not so much, it's a different type of people management. It's more about getting the best out of those people to get the best work up and the best work through.
Yeah, totally. That clears up a lot about what an account service job is. So thank you for those questions. Now we also asked Dan to bring in the coolest project he's worked on. Dan, would you be able to give us some background info on this campaign?
So this is one of my this would be up in the top 3 pieces of work that I've been involved in my career for a few reasons. One, it was at a really interesting time when I took a short-term contract in Tokyo last year at our AKQA studio there. 2, it's with a brand that I'm very familiar with because I'm a huge sneakerhead and spend far too much money on this brand. And 3, it was just a great idea with a great convergence of technology, and we had a really great time making it, and it ended up winning awards, which was not what we were aiming for, but a nice bonus. So I'll let the case study video tell the rest of the story.
Fabulous. Let's check it out.
Air Max has long been a symbol of creativity in Japan. So to launch 2020's new shoe models, Nike wanted to immerse Tokyo's youth in the creative process. But in a time where consumers were mostly confined at home, Nike wanted a way to keep the Air Max spirit alive without relying on physical events. So we put the word out for Tokyo creators to become the face of the campaign, inviting them to submit their stories and styles digitally. Then we published the best as something that could be seen and touched, with a twist. Introducing Create with Air Max, Nike's first original AR coloring zine. An online to offline to off-the-page content experience that lets you customize your own Air Max in the air in real time. Throughout the printed zine, readers didn't just find a chapter-by-chapter celebration of real Air Max-inspired creativity, but also the latest shoe designs turned into a blank canvas for them to imagine their next pair in their own way. Users simply colored their chosen Air Max on the page, and by viewing the design through their phone, they could see their creation come to life, in the air, in front of them. The experience took Nike's sneaker customization process to a whole new level of creative expression and spread the magic of Air Max when Tokyo needed it most. Create with Air Max by Nike.
Such an awesome campaign. What a perfect brief for a sneakerhead to get. So, Dan, how did this project come about? What was the brief?
Yeah, look, this is a really interesting one. So I landed in Tokyo on a 3-month contract looking after the Nike account, which was just the dream for me. And it was coming up to Air Max Day, and anyone who's a sneakerhead knows that Air Max Day is an annual celebration of the Air Max shoe, March the 16th from memory. And I got the brief that I've wanted my whole career, the Air Max Day brief. The client just really wanted to do some pretty pedestrian stuff, to be honest. It was a junior client, had been handed this brief and given some KPIs. And we had built a prototype of that technology, that AR color tracking technology for another Nike client in Shanghai. It had kind of got put in the bottom drawer, and we saw an opportunity to do something really special. At the time, Nike's strategy before COVID in Tokyo was to use AKQA to develop technologically led campaigns to bring people together. So we would do all sorts of events around Tokyo for the different product ranges, using interactive things to bring people together and celebrate Nike. So the initial response was around setting up that technology in some of the partner stores around Tokyo and getting people to come down and color in their Air Max, and then walk away with a printout of what they've done. Hopefully they buy some sneakers, and then we were hoping to connect it to the Nike ID technology. And then we're kind of halfway through getting that through the line, and then there's all these murmurs about this virus coming out of China. And all of a sudden, Nike stopped all of their events. Anything that was bringing people together, gone. So the client said, no, thanks, but no thanks, we'll move on. And this is where account service really comes in. So we just knew that we had to get this over the line. We knew it was going to be special. We knew that it was a great idea and a good use of technology. So I worked over there tirelessly for a few weeks, just trying to think of any way we could recut it. Given the changing restrictions, and look, this is very early on in the pandemic, we had no idea what was coming. Given everything that was changing, we worked tirelessly to just try and find new options. And eventually we landed on, let's use it as a way to bring people together when they can't be together. So we came up with this little zine here and sent it out to social media influencers and completely flipped the idea on its head. But a good demonstration of where account service was there day in, day out, working with the creatives, the technology guys, working with the client, just trying to clear a path for what we knew was a fantastic idea.
That's brilliant. Such a cool use of technology in a time where, technology is becoming more and more important in bringing people together. Now, moving on, the next segment is not for the faint of heart. Find a pillow to hide behind and be prepared to be scared, because it's client horror story time.
All right, Dan, can you please tell us your truly terrifying client story?
I can. And incidentally, the story happened while we were on that Nike project. So context is, you work at Nike, the only dress code Nike has is you must not wear competitors' clothes. So what competitors could be lifestyle brands, and obviously the hardcore sports brands like Adidas and Puma. And this rule is sort of disseminates down to all the agency partners in an unspoken but very real way, to the point where back in the day in London in our AKQA studio, people were reprimanded if they wore Adidas to the office. So that's the context of how serious this is. You don't wear a competitor's brand, even in the agency. So we're going in to present that idea that we just showed the case study of. And I'd been at the studio all day. I met the team at the Nike campus. It's the last meeting of the day. And our creative director, a really nice gentleman, Brazilian chap, also called Dan, turned up. He'd been in an edit suite all day for another client. So his head was elsewhere. And he arrived in the Nike foyer, and he turns up and he goes, and I'm not going to try the Brazilian accent. It won't work. He goes, Dan, I'm so sorry. I've really fucked up. And I was like, what's the matter? I've got the presentation. It's all good. Let's go. Let's go upstairs. He goes, dude, I'm wearing my Ultra Boosts. He's wearing Adidas on his feet. And we were like, no, we're presenting in 5 minutes. We cannot walk into the Nike campus past the Goddess of Victory trophy in reception and wear Adidas Ultra Boost to this presentation. Luckily, I had been to the gym that morning and I had my gym bag with a pair of Nike Metcons in the bag. So I'm like, Dan, you're going to have to wear my Nike Metcons. The only thing was, he was a couple of sizes bigger than me. So he squeezed his feet into these Nike Metcons, hobbled through reception into the meeting. No one at Nike knew. We got away with it. And he had to kick the shoes off under the table because his feet were hurting so much. It was a close call, but it could have been not quite career ending, but there's a real chance he could have been asked by Nike to never work on the account again. We got away with it.
Oh, that is so insane. What a close call. Far out. So yeah, great lesson on being prepared for pitches, definitely. Thank you, Dan. Now, for those of you thinking of heading into an account management role, you will face challenges. A stubborn client, conflicting interests, unrealistic expectations. In those situations, we might ask WWDD. What would Dan do? Conveniently enough, that's the name of our next segment. Now, for WWDD, we want to ask you guys, the viewers at home, to send in some example situations that a person working client side might run into and pop them in the chat. We're going to read out the scenarios and our account management extraordinaire, Dan, will explain how he'd handle the situation. We prepared one earlier, so first up, Dan, let's say your client is refusing to take any risks with their new campaign. They want you to merely just sell the product in the safest and most vanilla way possible, but the creative team have brilliant ideas they know could take the brand to the next level. How do you convince a client to venture out of their comfort zone?
Yeah, look, this isn't an uncommon situation. A lot of people in marketing roles are often playing a defensive role as opposed to an attacking role. And what I mean by that is they're trying to protect where they are and not prepared to put themselves out there and take huge risks, which obviously as the agency is a challenge. So what I would suggest here is that, first of all, if you've got a client like that, I'm assuming you're in a long-term relationship with them, I would be doubling down to make sure that you build that trust and demonstrate to them that you have their best interests at heart and that you understand their business, so that over time you can try and gain more trust and allow more space for risks to be taken. That being said, if you find yourself in this position in a specific campaign, what I would do is find ways of ensuring that the safety net that the client wants is met with the work that you present, and just find little spaces within that to push certain aspects of it into a more risky space. Now, this is a negotiation, right? It's a negotiation with your creative team who are just going, no, Dan, just tell the client it's got to be this way. And you've got to negotiate that down, because if you push the client too hard, the whole deal's done, and then your creative team are going to hate you even more. And then it's a negotiation over here with the client, because they're going, oh no, I just need to get this through. I don't want to take any risks because of X and Y. So it's all about, again, if I say it, I'll say it again. It's all about managing expectations and just trying to strike the right balance and keeping everyone happy.
Perfect. Finding that middle ground. Good. Our next question is, your client has given you a budget of $5,000, and this is including production and talent costs, and wants you to hire Kylie Jenner as your talent. How would you handle this?
Another not uncommon problem, probably an extreme version of, but this is sort of a daily issue in many instances. So what I would do here is, because this is about educating the client, right? Because if they're asking for something that extreme, they clearly either are just being really hopeful that you're going to do something for nothing, or they don't know. So let's assume it's the latter. I would pull up a ballpark cost, and ballpark because I wouldn't spend a lot of time investing in getting the cost exactly right, because you're going to waste your time. I would go in with a ballpark cost for what they want, which is going to be way over their budget. I would also go in with a cost and an idea of what they can do for the $5,000, and then go in with a point of view on where in between those two spaces they might want to go. Now, you might go in and they just want Kylie Jenner so bad that they go to the chief marketing officer and get the budget, in which case, excellent, fantastic. It's probably not that likely in the Australian market, to be frank. So you need to go in really equipped with the information that this is what you want and how much it costs. This is what you can afford based on what you've told me. So let's figure out where in between there we can land.
Great. So finding the middle ground and, again, managing expectations. I think it always comes down to that, doesn't it? So this question came from Rita earlier in the episode. What should we do if we encounter a client who is demanding or difficult to communicate with?
I would change that if to when, because you will. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Look, clients these days are a lot better behaved. They used to. I'm assuming you've all seen Mad Men, but there used to be a lot of clients really pushing agencies around and pushing account service around. That's less the case these days. People behave a bit better. But if you do encounter it, first of all, I would try and handle it one-on-one, and just show them again that you're there to be a partner, and that you're not a servant, and that you're not a vendor. You are a partner on the journey with them, and that their success is your success and your success is their success. If that doesn't work over a period of time, say a few weeks, I would escalate it within the agency. If you're in a good agency, you'll have that support around you, and that won't be tolerated. I have experienced in very, very, very extreme circumstances where I've had a CEO go to the CEO of a client and say, this is not on, we need to sort this out, and it's been sorted out formally. You don't really want to get to that point. You want to try and find a way to win that client over and show them that you being treated well is it's to their benefit in terms of their KPIs.
Ooh. Phew. Thank you, Dan, for giving us insight into what you would do into all these situations. An account service role is incredibly important, and it is amazing to get an insight into this side of the ad industry. We're now going to cross to Ben with this week's episode of Ben on the Street. Take it away, Ben.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to some more Ben on the Street. Tonight we have an exciting episode planned, as we're going to take a break from accounts and talk about risk-taking within the advertising world. Creating risky campaigns can either go really well or really poorly. Sometimes that creative baby you've poured your sweat and tears into can be loved by the creative industry and ad industry, but hated by the general public.
The TAC is no stranger to shocking ads.
One of TSA's monstrosities is Graham. Graham is the only human designed to survive on our roads, in a grotesque campaign to raise awareness for human fragility when faced with road trauma. In 2017, Graham won 29 Lions, a D&AD pencil, Clear Awards, and many, many more. But does the public agree with what the advertising industry deems as worth celebrating? Let's get out of our little ad world bubble and find out what the public think versus what our industry experts think.
So I'm here today with Liam and Lily. Pleasure to have you two on the show. So today we're just going to ask you a few questions about the Graham ad that TAC did. Have you guys seen this ad?
I have.
Yeah,
Yes.
you guys have seen it. So what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, how could I forget? It's a strong visual. It's definitely memorable.
I actually thought it was really gross the first time I saw it, and that's what stuck with me. It's just like a big jelly lump of a man. But I think like that in itself made it very interesting because it did look like a big lump, and I was like, what is this? I think it's really clever. I really like it.
I thought it was a really interesting way to visualize something that's road safety is something that we don't really think of as something that can happen to us. And so having something that was a bit jarring and a bit different to sort of take that moment and actually look and go, oh wow, this can happen and like happens very regularly to people was something really interesting, and I suppose a new way of looking at the risk.
I don't think it resonates to the road safety topic.
Because I don't understand like how he can survive from like the accidents, no?
That is something to do with some other disease, not road safety, sorry.
It was something that I don't know I ever saw any like other comms around it. Like I remember like knowing Graham existed and like understanding that there was some sort of installation with Graham and like he had facts and stuff with him, but I don't think I ever remember like seeing the TV ad or seeing the actual ads in real world.
Yeah.
At the time that Graham was released, it was an exhibition, so like people would go and you would actually go and like walk around and like meet Graham in person. And I think that what was really great about that experience was that you could go and find out why he was built like that, like why his legs look like that, and why his ribs look like that. And I think that what it does is it's just different. And I think that road safety ads really have the same vibe, have the same feel. You know what it's for before it comes on.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe it's not necessarily telling you like to stop speeding and stuff like that, but it is an interesting thing to say that you need to have 3 skulls and like 300 pounds of flesh from your ears, like to stop you in a car accident. Because you're like, oh, fuck, I don't know why, I'm just like built different. I think I can survive a car crash. But I think when you see Graham, you're like, oh, okay, possibly not.
I would say get something catchy, that catches your attention. But I would say, yeah, looking at the consequences, how it impacts a lot of people's life afterwards, yeah.
I think the fact that it was so engaging and became part of the meme culture was just getting people to sort of lay their eyes on it and think about it. So even if it did just affect a few people, maybe they were buying a car that week or they were considering going on a road trip that week, and if they had seen that exhibition or they'd heard about it from a friend, maybe it would have just affected a few decisions, and if it saved even just 2 or 3 lives on the road that year, then you'd say that it was worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. Well, because the ad gets a lot of people uncomfortable, right? It's pretty a gross kind of, Graham's kind of hideous, deformed.
He's a very unfortunate looking man.
Yeah. Do you reckon it's effective to get audiences uncomfortable, out of their skin, a bit eerie when presenting an ad like this?
I think fear is definitely like a very strong emotion to play on, and it's done time and time again in advertising. I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah, a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah, some people will feel uncomfortable because that not really looks like a real human. Once you make people uncomfortable, they will just more focus on what you want to show to the public. So I think if you just looks like a very, very comfortable and normal, you couldn't make the effect. Yeah, I think so.
Especially with like the anti-drink driving and smoking campaigns that sort of shaped culture. I think that like the effectiveness speaks for itself. It's still important to have an idea though as well. It's sort of become a thing where we are a bit desensitized to the shock tactics, so it's still important to have a really strong insight and idea there.
Yeah.
how can we as creatives make sure we're not just making ads to impress other people, but still make things that actually work?
Yeah, I think it's really about understanding who you're targeting. And like when we talk about Graham and how he was ridiculed online, you sort of think, well, was that even Graham's target audience? Because you have to really tap into, okay, well, what's the insight? Who am I talking to? How can I relate to them? And I think that's where it's really important, where if you get people in their language, in their space, like on a good rotation, you can like maybe get lucky enough to start changing some behaviours.
How does this audience want to hear the message you're sharing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, that's the last question.
Thank you very
For this. Thank you very much, Grace, for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. So everyone, a round of applause to Liam and Lily. Thank you very much, Grace, for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure. Now we're going back to Alana and Bella in the studio. See you there.
Thank you, Ben, and a big thank you to Liam, Lily and Grace as well. Super interesting conversations about how ads can be perceived differently outside of the advertising industry as they are inside. Something important to keep in mind when we're creating work that we want to have an impact. Moving on, Dan, we want to know just how well do you think you know your logos? Let's put it to the test and find out in a game of higher or lower. All right, the rules are pretty simple. You will be shown a logo and the price it costs to create it. You'll then be shown another logo and will be given 10 seconds to guess whether its production value is higher or lower. Viewers at home, feel free to compete with each other in the chat by sending in your answers. Dan, are you ready?
Good to go.
All right, let's get into it. We'll pull it up. We'll get this going. There we go. All right.
Okay, Dan, your time has started. So we've got the BP logo coming in at $211 million. Is Coca-Cola higher or lower?
Well, the timer's already run out.
It's okay, lower. So Coke's famous logo was free because it was created by its founder's partner and bookkeeper, Frank Robinson. Next up.
I'm going to go higher. I suspect that they would have gone through a lot of work to try and get that horrible logo right for London 2012.
Absolutely. At $625,000, the London Olympics logo was the most expensive Olympics logo of all time. So there you have it.
Google, is that the new version of the Google logo? I'm going to say Google is higher, if that's the new version that I know they had a lot of consultancies work on. No.
This is talking about the original design, which was created in 1998 by co-founder on the free graphics program called GIMP.
You're making this easy for me. The Google one was free, and so I'm going to go higher. I know that a lot of research was put into that ANZ logo with the human cut out there, so I'm going to go higher. Yeah, thought so.
Exactly right, 15 million. This cost also includes the larger marketing campaign that went along with the logo design.
I'm going to go higher. I remember this story coming up for the new Pepsi logo, but I remember it being exorbitant. I can't remember the figure, but I reckon the Pepsi logo was higher than 15 mil.
And incorrect.
No!
This $1 million was just for the 2008 redesign. The value of the logo apparently comes from embodying the golden ratio and geodynamics. So there you have it.
Just based on the age of the BBC logo, I'd say lower.
Let's have a look. And higher.
I'm not doing too well, am I?
800,000, just a small 800,000. They strived for a minimalistic logo which conveyed ambiguity and reliability.
I have no idea what that logo is. It looks like it's some Dutch post company. Higher. No idea.
Good job. So, Posten is the Norwegian postal service. $55 million seems ridiculously high, but it turns out that it helps strengthen the bond between the postal service and the people of Norway.
What a relief.
So, there you go. Congrats, Dan. Thanks so much for playing along. Some of those prices are unbelievable. Bella, how did he do?
Seven. But to be fair, we did put incorrect logos. So that's on us. If you're based off the age of the logo.
Right, yes.
So that's really on us. But yeah, good job overall though.
All right, let's move into the part of the show where we get to introduce you to this week's quick brief. You're not going to want to miss this one. So the brief this week has been taken from this month's D&AD Quickfire competition. So if you choose to tackle this one, be sure to submit it to the D&AD website by the 9th of September. There's an exciting opportunity to land yourself a role at IBM and to have your work turned into a real-life project. So make sure you've downloaded it off the D&AD page or read it on our socials so you can follow along. Bella, could you please give us a quick walk through it?
This brief is in collaboration with IBM, the New Blood Quickfire that they do every month. So IBM is committed to being a more sustainable company, and they want to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. And they want your help to design a digital product or service that is either in the fashion, food, or electronics industry that can help promote a circular economy. I lost my place. Hold on, sorry. A circular economy is a way of reducing waste and pollution and keeping materials in use. So the idea should incorporate both business owners and consumers. And although it's not super advertising-y brief, there's still a lot of it still utilizes a lot of the same creative and strategic skills that we as creatives do have, and is a really great way to extend your creative abilities. And I think there's a few of you out there who've probably already started it as well. And looking at it, it seems like a really incredible brief, and will really push you guys to step out of your comfort zone and do something different. Yeah,
I definitely want to give it a crack. So thanks for taking us through that, Bella. I'm sure the students are going to enjoy working on that one. If you guys do have questions on it, it's best to check out the D&AD website and scroll to the Quickfire FAQs page. Otherwise, we suggest chatting about it with a couple of mates for some brainstorming to help get you started. So while you guys are thinking of your account service related questions for Dan, we're going to have Perry bring you the latest in advertising news this week. Perry, over to you.
Good evening and welcome to Hungry News. I'm your host, Perry Capnius. Our top stories tonight are brought to you by B&T, Australia's leading publication for advertising and media news. Television has come a long way from its humble beginnings, from a platform to watch programs for free in exchange for watching a few ads, to now a platform to watch a few programs in exchange for your money and a few ads. According to research by Critios, 56% of Australians said they'd be happy to watch video streaming services with advertising to save money. 22% of Aussies said they'd be willing to pay for a basic video streaming subscription to watch content with ads, alongside an option to buy or rent premium content without ads. 20% of respondents said they are willing to share their data with advertisers to receive more relevant and personalised ad content. Sounds to me like reinventing the wheel by subscribing to a streaming service that only offers wheel-making tutorials. The State of Victoria has secured a primetime Olympic ad spot on New South Wales televisions, which has been used to share a message to keep our state free of COVID. The warning was labelled mean and nasty by Victorian opposition's scrutiny of government spokesman James Newbury. Some Twitter users even went as far as comparing it to the Australian Border Force ads. Personally, I just think that the pink and red colour scheme makes it look more like a passive-aggressive Valentine's Day card from one jaded lover to another. You can read more about these stories on bnt.com.au. And on to this week's bad ads, where the assignment was, you can put anything in the shape of a circle and it will make sense. If you're still hungry for more after this episode, perhaps you're craving Eat What Jamie's Menu You Love, which also had me hungry for a darker shade of text on that pale background. If that's not to your taste, we've also got some reduced quality chicken, guaranteed in case you didn't believe your eyes. The census now not only gathers data on what ethnicity one identifies as, but also what they drink with dinner. I would identify as someone lacking in melanin, or in this case, tannins, although I'd also like to identify as someone who thinks that this sticker is at least lacking the word wine. And in case you need a new way to spice up a poll, why not try this technique used to graph respondents' answers to whether they text whilst driving? I'm no expert, but I would advise against driving and deciphering this graphic. That's all for tonight.
Thank you, Perry, for the update. Now it's time to put Dan in the hot seat and have all your burning questions answered.
Great, so we're going to take to the chat now. This one comes from Andrew, who sent in his question from our Instagram page. If you're not already following that, check that out. So Andrew's asking, what level of art direction and Adobe software ability are employers looking for when they're hiring strategists and managers? Most of the internships that Andrew has applied for seem to be very art direction and copywriting focused. He would love to know if there are internships that allow for more account management focus.
I'm a bit far removed from that software to give you a specific answer about the software, but to broaden the question out, yes, I would imagine that you would be able to find internships in other skill sets, and I would very much encourage you to do so, particularly while you're still studying. I think the only real way to understand whether agency life is for you, because agency life is very unique. It's a lot of fun, it's an awful lot of hard work, and it's not for everyone. So I would encourage you to get out there and find out who the talent and culture people are at the different agencies, reach out and just tell them that you want to have a go. All people want to see in agencies out of the new talent come out is enthusiasm and willingness to give things a go. So if you're persistent enough and you do your research, I am confident that you will find an account service or a strategy internship somewhere, or something that allows you to try different things over a period of time.
Very good tips there. Our next question comes from Victoria. She asks, where do you think the industry is heading, and what are kind of some threats or, on the other end, opportunities?
Big question. How long have you got? So where do I think the industry is heading? The industry, from my lens that I have on it, with where I work, is moving more towards customer experiences as opposed to straight comms. So, when I say straight comms, I'm talking about your TVC, your billboard, your pre-roll, your comms that are being directed to people. It's much more about, and the work I do is much more about creating experiences that can touch a consumer at any point in their journey interacting with a product or a brand. And that's where technology plays a role. So, for example, with Bunnings, just trying to screen what I'm saying so I don't give anything away that's commercially in confidence, but we work to look at where consumers are interacting with Bunnings and try and make that journey to a sale easier and easier. And that might be changing the position of a button on a checkout page. It might be building an app that allows people to build a shopping list and navigate the store and in the most quick and efficient time and find the products they need, which is something we did. So in summary, I think the prevalence of technology is becoming more and more important. That has accelerated since the pandemic hit. I'd be looking to make sure that your understanding of the technology platforms and how they play a role in allowing consumers to interact with brands. I'd be making sure that is absolutely top of mind when you're preparing to get into the industry.
Yeah, definitely. Technology is a big one that we're all going to continuously have to work on in our future careers. So this question also comes from Victoria, Do you, Dan, feel that you lean on particular sides of the agency world? Like, do you lean more on the creative sides or the strategic sides?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. So my career's gone down a couple of paths. I started off in a very traditional and highly awarded creative agency here in Melbourne, working on L'Oreal Garnier, and my first job was dispatching print ads out to all the magazines for shampoo and conditioner and all of those things. A very traditional creative path. And then I decided that I wanted to get a digital education because I could see that if I didn't do that, I was going to become a dinosaur. And I went to a pure play digital agency. But I've always really been more motivated and found it easier to naturally align my brain to creative strategy. So now that I've kind of done both those things over a number of years, I like to straddle them both. I do lean more naturally into responding to a creative brief, understanding a customer insight, writing briefs, thinking about the creative strategy. But the importance of technology is so prevalent that I work really hard to understand those things, which actually I find very, very difficult. I'm working on a pitch at the moment that is submitted on Friday, and the technology side of it is actually frying my brain. I find it really difficult, but I realize that I've got to do that. So in summary, I lean more naturally towards the creative strategy, but the importance of technology is so high that I like to straddle the both.
Very good. Very good points. This one comes from Tessa. She does ask, have you ever had to like terminate a deal or contract with a client? Is that something that happens regularly in kind of accounts management at all?
It's not something that happens regularly, but it certainly does happen. I haven't personally had to resign a client, but I have worked for people who have. It usually lands on the most senior person in the business, which might be the managing partner or the head of client services or the MD. I haven't had to do it. Usually you would try and make it work until it's really not workable. And at that point, try and find a way of gracefully exiting the relationship, because what can happen if you just try and cut things off, the reputation of the agency could be soured. That client could be talking to all their peers in market and in Melbourne, and Melbourne's a very small industry. So yes, it does happen. It's rare. You will try and make it work until it's really impossible to make it work. And if you do have to sever ties, you will do so in a graceful way that doesn't burn bridges.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to have to resort to that. This question comes from Christine. How did you pursue your career internationally? How do you start looking for jobs out of Australia? Even though now is not the best time.
Yeah, no, now isn't the best time. We're really struggling to bring talent here as well at the moment. So for me personally, I didn't pursue work out of Australia. I was actually made redundant in 2019 and didn't work for a few months, which was getting quite stressful because I've got a young family. And while I was interviewing with AKQA Melbourne, my friend who I'd worked with at another agency who happens to run AKQA Tokyo and Shanghai now, just called me and said, "Hey, I hear you're out of work. I need someone to come and look after Nike for a few months. Can you come?" So it just kind of happened for me in some really extreme circumstances. And I think if I hadn't been made redundant, there's no way I would have left my wife and kids in Melbourne to go and do that. But so that doesn't really answer your question. But what I would say to you is, if you are going, I would strongly recommend pursuing overseas experience if you can get it. Australia, as with everything else, being such a small market, we tend to be a few years behind the bigger markets, like the bigger Asian markets and America and the UK. So if you can get yourself over there, I would strongly recommend it. But I would get yourself a few years experience here first. I would, and using the account management paradigm, I would at least get yourself from account exec to account manager, maybe even to a senior account manager before you try and pursue something overseas. so that you've just got some runs on the board, and you will find it a lot easier to find something in one of those markets. And then go and get that experience. And if you come back here, then you will be, this is a bit of generalization, but you will be a little bit ahead of the game, because the things that are happening in those markets are just a bit further ahead of what's going on here.
Good. Yeah, definitely kind of keeping your eyes open for opportunities and just working your way up. That's a really good point. Our last question is a bit of a lighthearted one. Gid asks, did Nike ever gift AKQA custom shoes if the campaign went well?
Not in my short time on the account, but when I left, I had a great relationship with the lead Nike client over there. He was from head office Nike Portland, Oregon, and had moved to Japan, and we got like a house on fire. And when I left, the agency and a couple of guys from Nike took me out for dinner, and they did give me a pair of pretty rad sneakers that I wasn't expecting. So yes, they do hook you up. Whether they go to the extreme of customizing, I've not experienced that. I hope so.
It's definitely a perk of the job. So with that last question, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode of Hungry Talks. I apologize for the technical difficulties tonight. We're still learning the new technology, having to move back online from being in the studio last week. So thank you for being patient with us. We have to give a big thank you to Dan Collado for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight and give us all your amazing insights into the life of an accounts manager. We appreciate everything you've said tonight, and who knows, you may have even inspired a few students to head down the accounts services path. Did you enjoy your time on the show tonight, Dan?
Yeah, look, thanks for having me. It's actually refreshing to just be away from the normal pressures of agency life for a moment. I really love your setup. You've got a great, a very professional production setup going here. That's fantastic. And I would encourage any of you, I'll just reiterate what I said. If you really want to get into the agency world, find a way while you're at uni to try and get an internship or some experience, because it really is all about networks and who you meet and who you know. Particularly when you're trying to break through. So just get out there and be willing to try anything, and you'll find your path.
Totally agree. Brilliant advice there, Dan. Well, thanks again for your time, and we'll catch you later. Students, if you haven't already, go ahead and download the brief from John's announcement on Canvas and get cracking. Besides that, we hope you guys have enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next week when we will be getting a bit more social. But for now, I'm Alana.
And I'm Bella, and this has been Hungry Talks. We hope you guys have a groovy night.